My very good friend Luciana Morales contacted me a number of months ago and said, "Hey, you have any ideas? So I'm getting a little bit of writer's block, getting a little bit stuck on this text that I'm working on. We're going to be calling it Queens of the Chessboard, and it's a text that's going to focus on the women's world champions, at least the first five." And as she began to tell me more about the text, I became more and more excited as I saw the potential to not only highlight chess history, but get an instructional text that can hit all areas of the game in interesting ways. So I got really excited and dove right into the project. And I'd like to highlight one of the games from my book and tell a little story about the first women's world champion, Vera Menchik. Now, the interesting story that goes along with this game, it was 1929 to set the stage in the city of Carlsbad, and a very prestigious tournament was going on with 22 renowned masters. Amongst them, you've got Capablanca, Rubinstein, Nimzovich, who ended up winning the tournament, Tartikover, Erva, or Yu, depending upon how you want to pronounce it and which country you're in, and a number of other masters around the world. Vera had become the women's world champion roughly 2 years prior to this tournament, and upon her invitation, it was said that a number of competitors did not like the fact that she was invited and were very skeptical about her competing in the tournament. One of those naysayers, who in a public news article bashed Vera, this was Albert Becker, by the way, a chess master from Vienna, went as far as proposing the creation of the Vera Menchik Chess Club, a group whose members, if defeated, populated the club. So this game is probably one of my favorites from the book, as Vera puts on a positional masterclass as she trashes Mr. Becker, who became the first member of the Vera Menchik Chess Club. And don't talk smack if you can't back it up is the moral of the story with this game. So let's dive right in to this Slav, and we get the very solid modern approach, which I like. And the typical way of approaching this position would be, say, a Moran type setup, which would be with knight bd7, dc4, and b5. But in this game, Mr. Becker decided to go with knight e4, which is a bit of an odd move, but it is angling for a stonewall Dutch structure. Now, when facing the stonewall Dutch structure, especially from a more passive position, say non-fianchetto, one of the major ideas is to play f3 to kick that knight out. And I really liked to see this first move, knight e5 by Vera, and it's multi-purpose. As one, we've got this highlighted threat with queen h5, and then two, we had the potential at some point of thinking about f3 after castles. And black did have a good move in response, queen h4, cutting out that queen h5 threat, as well as making a big threat in response. So the question is, what is the best way to deal with this problem? Let's just go ahead and tuck the nugget away, castle on the king side, and after knight d7, f3 is still a consideration, but I can't say that Vera didn't handle this in an excellent way with f4, securing and cementing that e5 knight. Now both sides have that excellent centerpiece knight posted in the center of the board, and well posted at that. But one of the things that sticks out is who is going to have an easier time developing and who has the better pawn structure. Notice white always has the ability to change the pawn structure, but black has more of the pure defensive stone wall, and it's harder to get that bad bishop into the game than it is for white that can easily zigzag our bishop. So a few of the salient features in the position. So after bishop e7, we start seeing the zigzag take place with bishop d2. And here it is rarely a good idea to capture, as it is going to cement a pawn. And it's often when your opponent gets a good piece in the center, you go, oh, I'm going to take it. You want to hesitate and play around that piece if possible. For instance, as opposed to knight takes e5 that was played in the game, castles would have been a lot stronger. Is after bishop e1, rook b1, white has a plan to play on the queen side, but the tension is left in the position, and I feel like black has better chances here. But after bishop d2, knight takes e5 was played, and after d takes e5, bishop c5. And one cannot help but think that Becker was playing in a very optimistic way, going against some developmental principles. In the last few moves, he opted to develop his queen before the other pieces, and now he's moving his bishop for the second time. These are little things that begin to stick out. And here, Vera is going to change the course of the game. As the position is mostly closed, she elects to give up the bishop pair in order to guarantee a knight in the closed position, which I very much like this decision. As we'll see, this is going to be a key to winning the game. And now's a good point if you are a pause your video and think type of person. What would you do here after f takes e4? And my recommendation to my students is try to use a variation of the Kotov thinking process where look at, say, 2 to 3 moves, compare them, and see what you come up with. It'll at least get rid of some bad answers that way. Now, hopefully, some people go, okay, checks captures threats like tactics. I better play c takes d5. C takes d5 is going to help black with the pawn structure and help them develop their bishop on c8 easier. So you want to keep the tension in the position and keep it closed if possible to benefit the knight. So, forcing moves. What is the most forcing move in the position? Well, this was not played in the game, but b4. As after takes, we have knight takes e4, a beautiful combination which says, hey, do you want to trade your bishop pair off and be left with that terrible c8 bishop versus my good knight? Or if you take my knight here, I take your bishop and your king's kind of stuck in the middle. This was the best combination in the position. If you found this, gold star for you. Absolutely excellent effort. Now, Vera's move does increase the advantage, but b4 would have been a backbreaker right then and an excellent move. So queen d8 was played, and presumably Mr. Becker is trying to prevent action in the center. But we do have the idea of capturing anyway here, as c takes d5 now can be recommended as f5, and that c8 bishop is still shut out. So that's definitely an option. In the main game, knight a4 was played, and after bishop e7, this is another great instructive moment and a pause your video and try to figure it out if you're playing the home game of solitaire chess with me. Now, for those that play the French defense or have studied my Master of the French Defense course, this next move is going to scream to be played. Bad bishop, your opponent has the bishop pair, you can trade off the good bishop, bishop b4, saying, please, 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 let's trade bishops. Good knight versus bad bishop scenario. I'm going to run a positional clinic for the rest of the game here. And Vera doesn't disappoint, gets the bishop off the board, and then c takes d5, and Mr. Becker plays the logical looking move, but also it does give us full control. And moves like f5 are going to come pretty soon here. So I think c takes d was probably the better way to go. And how are we going to magnify the edge here? Well, I want to attack base pawns. We've got a rook that's not working, so a great place to start is rook a to c1. And after bubba 7, we need to pressure targets. So how can we add more pressure to the c-pawn? Well, step by step, we've got a knight on the edge of the board right now. I dream of getting my knight to d4 under ideal circumstances. So let's go ahead and bring the knight back to c3. And also, it should be noted with knight c3, if castles, we have knight takes e4 due to the pin. So in the main game, queen f7 was played first. a logical move to try to protect against that bug diagonal. And Vera in response goes, "Oh, you would like to castle." In that very preventative squeeze positional player style, Vera goes, "I believe I'm going to stop your idea now. Thank you. You don't get to castle." And when studying the games of Vera, I definitely loved her mature positional approach to playing the game. And if you can't find the best move, but you can find the most annoying move, I always like to think that's a great chess player. And Queen B4, I feel like it's not only the most annoying move, it is the best move in the position, as it's preventing the opponent from getting safe and doing what they want. Now after Rook D8, Rook FD1, we're assuring that Black's pawn structure stays in a static defensive position, and Bishop A8 trying to get off any potential pin as the pawn structure changes. And Vera's like, "Okay, you want to make changes? Sure. How are you going to make those changes?" "I'm just going to make a luft." Slow, steady improvements. Let the opponent make the changes if they so badly want to. Now Queen E7. Okay. We'll trade queens. And now the squeeze begins. The knight should be oh so much better than the bishop. When would the bishop be good? If the position opens up. So the first thing we need to do is to try to secure the pawn structure in a way to where the bishop's going to continue to be bad. B4. Vera definitely understands the squeeze. And I love the clinic that's put on from here on out in the game. Now you go, okay, you're doubling rooks in order to play D4. So I'm going to make sure that that's not going to take place and look to reroute my knight to the absolute dominant square of D4. And on Rook C8, no C5, Knight D4, and just all of the arrows, all of them. The coordination is beautiful, and we have ideas everywhere here. Black tries to prevent some of the expansion, and another pawn's going on the same color as the bishop, which is just making it even worse. So here's another one of those pause your video moments as we're getting closer and closer to the end of the game. And Mr. Becker had to be feeling it by now that he shouldn't have talked that smack. So what move would you play here? Well, first, Knight B5, exploiting the pin on the C-pawn. And after Rook D7, King F2. No reason to rush. Keep the tension and pressure on. And the king's just going to activate the endgame because he'll be helpful later. Okay, well, we'll get a little bit more space. Just no hurry when you're winning in this type of positional squeeze. Okay, you're forcing me to move my knight. That's fine. You're going to have to go back and defend that now. Okay. Principle of two weaknesses. I've got you tied up on the queen side, and this expansion on the king side is happening. So let's just continue to slowly improve beautifully. Two connected pass pawns look great, but again, no hurry. Get everybody working. Black can't do anything, so let's continue to improve. King's in much better shape than it was a few moves ago. And what can you do? Nothing. A5 just flailing at this point. Hopefully you see tactical sequence here. First we'll take, and now Knight B5, and White's threatening to win the exchange. And after Rook D7, E6, we can say welcome to the chess club, Mr. Becker. Hopefully you enjoyed this game, and if you liked it, check out Queens of the Chessboard. We'll say part 1, only on Chessable.